Stress can sneak up on us, especially as we get older. In my 20s and 30s, I have two of my favorite methods of dealing with stress. First one was just to ignore it until it broke me, and the second one was to have a few drinks after work to unwind. Now that I'm in my 40s, those methods no longer work for me. And in this video, I'll share with you techniques that I tried. Some of them are traditional that you probably heard of, and some that are a little bit unusual. So stay until the end of the video to learn about those, but also about my verdict on the ones that do work and the ones that don't. Hi, my name is Jay Martinov, and on this channel we're about thriving as you age, living well, stay active, and enjoying life. Starting with the first one, I learned this technique from Andrew Huberman's podcast, and it's called a physiological sigh. It is pretty simple. You do 2 inhale through your nose and 1 exhale through your mouth, and it looks like this. And this should bring you back to your calm state. The beauty of this technique that you can do it while being engaged in a stressful situation. If you're presenting in front of an audience or you're in the middle of a tense conversation, you can just do this technique and you do 2 or 3 of those, and this should be enough. Andrew does much better job at explaining what goes into this from a biology perspective, and I'll share a link to this specific podcast in the description. A few years back, I worked with this lady in a quite stressful environment, and she had this printout of 2 palm trees and a fence pinned to a cubicle wall in our office. It didn't look one of those vacation photo magical paradise or a hobby, and I did ask her, "What's that?" And she said, "That's my happy place." She explained to me that this was a backyard of her house and she would go there after work to relax and unwind. This was also a place where she would spend most of her weekend looking after her plants. And whenever she was stressed, she would have glance at that photo and it will bring her back to that place. You can do exactly the same thing. You can try pinning a photo of your favorite location or place where you went to and you have some really strong memories about feeling happy. This next technique is closely related to the palm trees and it's called anchoring. This is something I give to my coaching clients, and the idea there is to create an association between your emotional state and a signal or a gesture or something that you can easily reproduce in another environment. You've probably seen this when a new puppy gets trained to stop in front of a traffic light to sit and wait for the green light until the owner gives a command to go across. Usually it gets associated with a bit of a treat and command to sit. Eventually the treat is removed and dog knows when it gets too close to the traffic light it needs to sit down. We do have a lot of animal biology in us, and that's why this probably works. The way to implement this is whenever you have a calm, peaceful feeling, or if you purposely put yourself in this situation, for instance, you meditate or you go to a beautiful place that you normally go to relax, you do a hand gesture, something unique that you can recognize this place. For instance, you can give yourself a rub on the shoulder, or maybe you can click a finger, or maybe you can touch the palm. One of those signals only you will know. And you need to repeat this whenever you go into this place. So it'll probably take you a while, but what will happen, you will train your body to recognize this particular signal as a sign to relax. Now, this will take a bit of investment on your part, but if you really want to develop this calming habit on command, that's what you need to do. This next technique I learned from the Chatter book, and it involves you taking a walk for about 5 to 10 minutes among the trees. In one of the studies, researchers found out that if someone went for a walk around trees or nature, they managed to bring themselves back to the balanced emotional state much faster if they just did go for a normal walk. And if you don't have an option to go for a walk in a park to relieve stress, a lot of us work in office buildings, there is also a solution. Years ago, I worked in another stressful environment. It was a building with no windows. It was designed as a data center to withstand some extreme environments, and it was quite depressing to work there. You didn't know what time it was, you couldn't see the sky. What I've noticed, a lot of my workmates started putting the pictures of the ocean views or forest, and I didn't realize why, but later on I found out that there was a research done on people who just finished a public speaking in front of an unfamiliar audience and they were completely unprepared. The scientists wanted to test how fast they will come back to their natural emotional state, and they showed them some videos of nature. What they found out that those who watched these videos managed to recover much faster. If you know about tennis, you know who Rafael Nadal is. Now, Nadal has a very famous pre-serve routine when he touches his nose and ears in a particular sequence. So this is his ritual to organize his internal world for external actions, and you can create a very similar one. I, for instance, use it before I start my day. Before I open up my laptop, I lay out my mouse, I open up the organizer, and I get my bottle of water ready. So this brings me to a calm and relaxed state. Martial arts can be a lot of fun, but also give practitioners benefits from health to building their confidence and ability to deal with challenging situations. I personally use martial arts and still doing some boxing these days to help me having a balanced life that doesn't have just work and my relationships, but something else. There is something about releasing the tension and giving that stress out into a physical world. And one of parts of martial arts, using a heavy bag for punching, can be a quick and easy relief from stress. Working for 20 minutes on a punch bag leaves me empty from my negative emotions from stress, and it's quite a cathartic experience. My suggestion is to combine it with some boxing lessons so you know how to punch properly and don't injure yourself. Now, my next technique falls into an unusual category, and it's basically screaming into a pillow as loud as you can. Now, this technique is not new. It originated in 1970s from something called a primal therapy, and the idea there to deal with some emotional and psychological traumas. People could relieve those by engaging in something like screaming. Obviously, we're using a pillow so we don't alarm your neighbors thinking that something terrible is happening in your apartment. And this idea, despite about 50 years old, still has its followers. There was a Kickstarter project called the Screambox that was meant to design a little device that you could scream into. Unfortunately, we didn't get enough funding to build the actual device, but you can still find videos on YouTube promoting it. And this leads us to the next unusual technique, is using an AI to deal with stress. I recently started using ChatGPT a bit more to explore some ideas or learning a new language, and I ran into somewhat difficult, perhaps created my own head situation. I bumped into an old colleague and we had a bit of a banter, and I made a bit of a teaser comment about not prioritizing health. Now, when I walked away from that conversation and it was all lighthearted and joking, I felt like maybe I shouldn't have said that. And I'm sure you guys experienced the same in your life. Problems with this, that I do really care about people when I say those things, but also sometimes I don't filter what I say. And it gets me in trouble primarily with myself, thinking like, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Normally, I would chat with a friend about this and say, do you think that was okay? But in this situation, I didn't have a friend around and I didn't want to call anyone. And I just pulled my phone out and started talking to ChatGPT. In a couple of minutes, it calmed me down, gave me a couple of ideas, and suggested that a lot of those things aren't actually as difficult or bad as we think they are. Reflecting back on my experience, I thought, well, that was pretty good and reassuring, and I basically just got caught up in my own head thinking that this conversation meant something more than in fact it didn't. When I asked ChatGPT about stress management, it confirmed that it's actually quite an effective tool that is probably worth exploring for someone. And I know it wouldn't replace a therapy or something a bit more like a medical advice or having to chat to a real person, but at the same time, in a moment when you don't have anyone to talk about something, this could be your solution. So the final verdict: which ones of those techniques work? Now remember, I'm not a medical professional and I can only tell you what works for me. Out of those, I would say that walking in the park and disengaging from stress is definitely one of my favorite ones. I always feel recharged when I come back to the office and ready to tackle another challenge. I also like the routines or rituals, the one that I start my day with and the one that I start my working day with. They're very different and they put me in this calm and relaxed space. I do like my boxing and I don't separate the punching bag outside of it, but I think overall being involved with martial arts definitely makes me feel more composed and happier person. And ChatGPT is relatively new. I used it a couple of times and it was just to test what it can do, and because there was no one around. Now for the other ones, screaming to a pillow, I think it's a little bit extreme, and also I don't think I would normally do it. I don't have that much anger to release, and for stress, I think there are other options you can try. Now for the anchoring technique, while I do teach it to my coaching clients, I wouldn't normally induce the stress relief emotional state. It will probably be more to do with focus or concentration. Like this could be a really good anchor to connect with that state. Breathing technique, why I do like the simplicity and the fact that you can use it while you are in a stressful situation. In a lot of these cases, it's very hard to actually realize and reflect on the fact that you are in the middle of a stress. And that's the reason why we often forget to do that. I would always say that prevention is a much better approach than having a few techniques up your sleeve. If you sleep and eat well, if you exercise, if your home is a sanctuary where you come back to and recharge, dealing with challenges is much easier. Combining wind techniques with a well-built resilient state is a much better way to deal with life challenges. And if you find this video useful, please like and subscribe. My name is Jay Martinov, and I will see you in the next one.